Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today I caught my girlfriend using dating sites behind my back. We've been together for about a year and a half now. Last week, I went out to her place in the morning to surprise her with some food. We'd been fighting a bit, so it was going to be a full date day. She rolled over in bed, and I saw a message on her home screen saying, "You're such a beautiful girl. Why are you on dating sites?" So at this point, she had just woken up. Obviously, I'm pretty tense, and she asks me if I'm okay. I'm like, I'm not really sure. I just saw a message on your phone that said, "Why are you on dating sites? You're such a beautiful girl." She replies, "What are you talking about? That's crazy. I'm not on any dating sites." And then she ran to the restroom. She was in the restroom for quite a while, and then finally comes out and goes, "Yes, I was on dating sites. We've been fighting a lot, but it's not like that. I just wanted to see what was out there." I left because I was in a pretty big panic. My ex prior to her that I was with for 10 years cheated on me constantly, and it destroyed me, so she knows how I feel about this kind of stuff. She texts me and says, "I didn't even cheat though. I would have never even met up with anyone or talked to anyone without telling you first and breaking up with you. I'm sorry that I downloaded it. I was just lost and hurting." We don't have an open relationship of any kind, and obviously she was talking to someone since that was over text, meaning she's been giving out her number. She keeps saying things like, "I'm sure it's all very worse in your head." I questioned her a bit more on it, and she said, "He was the only one I messaged. I matched with people and let my inbox fill up. I only responded to him because he's friends with Danny and Aaron." She keeps telling me it's worse in my head and I'm overreacting. I'm so torn apart. I love this girl, but after my ex, I promised myself I'd never put myself through that again. She says she doesn't want to lose me and will do whatever it takes. She said I can look through her entire phone now. Kinda late since she had a week to delete everything. So a few questions. Should I even give her another chance? Is this cheating? If I go through the phone and find obviously deleted messages, how should I respond? Is she trying to gaslight me? She just wants to hold on to you until she finds the next best thing. If you're having problems in a relationship, you should be focused on trying to find ways to make things better. You don't go on dating sites to see what's out there. How does that make your relationship better? She's already emotionally checked out. Let her go. If she keeps on justifying her actions and blaming you for overreacting, then you know it's over. She's trying out her other options while keeping you as the safe option. Based on her comment, without telling you first and breaking it off, once she finds a viable candidate, she'll just move ahead and dump you. Every single fight or argument you guys have from this point forward, you're going to wonder if she's cheating on you. It's not worth it. And like the other commenter said, she's holding on to you while keeping her options open, and no healthy relationship can grow from that. My husband, 38 male, doesn't think that I love him. For reference, let's call my husband Jack and my daughter Lily. Jack and I have been married for about 10 years, dated for 5, and have a 4-year-old. Overall, we've had an absolutely wonderful relationship. Sure, occasionally we hit a rocky spot, but we always recovered stronger than ever. Most of our friends look at us as the ideal couple too. I've never doubted that he loves me, and I've tried my best to reciprocate it. Even when he wasn't home often during our first 5 years of marriage, he came back home after that since he got a promotion. We have great communication, and I already am planning on how to approach this with him, but a second opinion would be nice, just in case someone else already dealt with something similar. Yesterday, he was doing some very acrobatic exercise in our backyard. He does this every day, even when he's almost delirious from fever, which was hilarious to see. I joked that he'd leave me to become a monk. He just froze for a second and responded, "Maybe, after Lily grows up." Sure, this could just be playful ribbing, but I had a bad feeling in my gut, and I kept poking at him. He almost fell down, which is very odd since he has excellent balance, made me leave so he could focus on his stuff. That especially made me feel even worse. The rest of the conversation happened at dinner. The gist of what he said is something like, "The signs are all there." He mentioned that we haven't been as romantic or intimate as of recent. He even said something about less attraction on my end, which isn't true. Then mentioned weeks of silence. I don't remember this happening at all. Frequent absence. I haven't been going out much, except with my friends for dinner dates, which isn't often, just 4 times a week for now. Something about initiation. The only one that somewhat made sense was how I was cutting couple time for friend time or game time, which doesn't happen all that often. I can only count 2 or 3 times last week where I did that, and we still had an hour or so out of planned 3 or 4 hours to spend together, so he shouldn't have had an issue. What he did next honestly broke my heart, and I almost started crying right there. I don't think you love me as I do you, but that's fine. We'll raise our kid, grow old, and exist until we die. I already have a few hobbies that can make me happy. I can't make you responsible for all my happiness. That would be unfair. And he said that with the most deadpan expression ever, like we were talking about the weather or how our day went. I tried to make him understand that this hurt me, but it didn't seem to land at all. He just kept staring at me blank-faced, and I honestly felt terrified. Afterwards, we slept in the same bed after he put Lily to sleep, and we cuddled like normal, which was so jarring to me. I've put a lot of work into keeping us together, so to hear this from him has hurt me deeply. It's even worse because what he describes sounds exactly like his parents. They're two old, bitter people who stayed together to raise him and still stay together, for God knows why. I've never seen them be loving towards one another, and only once towards him. He was always very particular about that stuff and said he never wants to have something like that. A few years ago, he said that he was so glad we weren't like that and that he was so lucky to have someone who actually loves him and won't spontaneously stop because folded clothes wrong, which made me fall in love all over again to know how much I meant to him. And then there's all that stuff he said, and I honestly can't remember something like not talking to him or silence. But I remember how his mother used to forget things, like she'd do something wrong, get that wrong thing pointed out, and then forget it ever happened. One time she was saying something about how my kind of people are less likely to succeed in business and she'd become a housewife, which is weird because she's a lawyer, and he certainly hasn't said anything like that and is very proud of my passive income stuff. My husband called her out on it, stone-faced, and defended me. I didn't like that he said that I made more than him at the time because I was afraid his mom would say something, but she backed down after that. She forgot about that incident a day later. She couldn't recall that lunch or what we had said or anything. He didn't want to subject me to that, but I insisted since family is pretty important to me, so we went back a few times. This same thing has happened at least 2 times, the target switching to him. I'm proud of him for standing up to her, and she can't remember any of it. Eventually, I got a begrudging approval from her. His dad didn't care too much and was like, "Whatever makes you happy," from the start, which was nice. I'm crying my eyes out at a friend's house. I wanted to take Lily with me this morning, but she was in the middle of some class with Jack helping her do some activity the teacher gave them, so I just went on my own. I feel so heartbroken right now, and I don't know what could have happened to make him think this way. I've been having a great few years since he's been home the last 5 or so years and lightened the load on taking care of Lily. What happened? Does anybody have experience dealing with something like this? This is a complete breach of my trust, and I'm hurting so much from what he said. Any advice is helpful. I plan on returning at lunch and dinner for Lily's sake, but I'll try to talk to him after I've settled for a day. Edit, 4 hours in. I've canceled my plans for the week and told my friends nothing about why. One of my close friends, who is very friendly towards any husband, asks for him every time I go to their houses and spoils and plays with my daughter, then suggested it was my husband and said he was controlling and other things. I told her to stop, but she didn't, and nobody in the group did anything to stop her. Some even joined in. I've cut them all off. I can't believe this. Edit. Working on what to say tonight. Also working on replacing friend time with date nights. Somebody said I have to make him fall in love with me again. That's a goal. Edit. Went back home. Mostly finished the list of things to say. Found him repeatedly smashing his shoulders into a tree and actually denting it. Lily was watching and eating ice cream. She seemed tired but didn't want to go inside yet. I'm making dinner tonight. Update. This went better than expected. I wish I could say that there were tearful embraces and we spent a passionate night rekindling our marriage in record speed like a Lifetime movie, but no. Still, this is what I'd say is one of the best case scenarios. Firstly, I'll clarify from the other post on a few things I've noticed that people are getting blatantly wrong. Most seem to think that I am gone without him several nights a week, around 2 to 3 times max. 4 was a unique case and I misstated that. Don't initiate hooking up. I'm the only one initiating, and I get turned down half the time, which, as you can imagine, is doing wonderful things to my self-worth. I literally have to spend minutes convincing him to get anything more than 3 times a week. Cancel plans with him regularly for friends. I want to say no, but I'm beginning to doubt my own judgment. He's also invited to every single friend night. He just prefers not to come along. Affair. I'm not going to parties or clubs or anything like that. That's a hard boundary I set for him as well. The get-togethers and dinners are usually held a few houses down at my former friend's house, a 10-minute walk away. Now on to the update. Dinner was very good. Jack and Lily loved their meals, and afterwards I did what a commenter suggested and asked Lily, "Do you love mommy?" She answered yes. "Do you love daddy?" The yes was bigger. "You think daddy loves mommy?" Another adorable yes. "You think mommy loves daddy?" Silence. I felt like I had gotten slapped. I'm not sure if it showed on my face because Jack immediately came between us and rubbed her hair. He gave a very loud, boisterous, "Of course she does," picked her up and carried her to bed while tickling her. Pretty sure I was still reeling from that revelation, but I snapped out of it. Weirdly enough, he seemed annoyed when he got back, which is strange since he rarely ever shows something like that. Anyway, I remembered my points and pretty much unloaded everything in a half blueberry mess. I said that I was sorry for everything, that I got too caught up with old friends and I was blinded by all the activities and catching up and get-togethers that I didn't realize how much time I was cutting from our plans and our time and family. I was sorry for leaving this morning and trying to make this about me when he's trying his best for our daughter. I've been a bad partner, I know. I told him that I really appreciate that even if he has doubts, he's still willing to be true to me, and I'm proud of him for having the courage to communicate because it really needed to be said, and how I couldn't imagine how hard that was for him. That I wouldn't be associating with that group again because I realized what they really thought of him, and that I was stupid not to have realized it earlier. That I know I hurt him and broke his trust, and I'm sorry he had to go through all of this, and that I never noticed because I was too caught up in my own life when I should have been caught up in our lives, and I'm sorry. That we should be a team, and that I don't only want to stay together for Lily, but I want him. If he had anything else to say or any doubts, to please say it, because I'll genuinely listen this time and I won't get defensive. Cue hand-holding over table. That I do really care for him, and I was sorry that I haven't shown it recently, and to please just give me a chance. Just one chance, that's all I need. To give me the opportunity to show him that I love him. He just took a few breaths and said general issues that I pretty much initially dismissed. He also said that it would be a while before he trusts me enough to say anything that might send you running to your friends, which hurt considering the fact that I gave them up for him, but I mostly understood where he was coming from now that I wasn't feeling attacked by what he said. It still hurt when he added, "You'll change for a week or two, then change right back and forget it ever happened." I told him that was fine, and all he had to do was let me show him how much I care. All in all, it was great. All the planning paid off, and it felt like a weight was off my chest. I even did the small gestures of comfort stuff during it, like holding hands and meeting eyes. I could almost see a little change in his expression, mainly the eyes. He was blank-faced throughout the whole thing, but I could tell he was fighting to not break down since he rarely trembles. One of his tells is when his fingers start to spread out like some silly claw shape. That certainly didn't happen before. I knew there was hope. I've already booked a babysitter on his free day and have a reservation for a fancy restaurant that he likes. He agreed to go out with me with a small nod, and I honestly felt ecstatic. I immediately hugged him, and even though he was a bit stiff at first, he returned it. It's been a while since we felt together now that I think about it, and the feeling is different and bubbly. He went to sleep in the same bed and got excited when he held my neck and brought us closer and stared in my eyes while touching foreheads, then disappointed me when he just went to sleep. And to all those people who say he should leave me, seethe. It isn't happening. Am I the jerk for expecting my boyfriend to pay rent if he moves in with me? This is a doozy. I've been dating Josh for a year. I should say now that I, 24 female, don't ever want to be legally married, and Josh, 30 male, is divorced and doesn't want to remarry. We also live in a place where there is no common law marriage. Still, we want to take things a bit further, and we're talking about Josh and his 2 daughters moving in with me. I own a 3-bed, 2-bath house in a nice area. Josh rents a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment, and his lease is coming up. My mortgage is $1,000 a month, and Josh's rent is $1,400 a month. It was important to me that we would have everything figured out before making the change so that there would be no surprises or disagreements about who pays what. I figured it would be unreasonable for Josh to expect to just live with me for free, especially since I'd be giving up one of my rooms so his daughters could have a room. I suggested that Josh pay $700 a month to me in rent, half of what he's currently paying. I would cover the cost of any home repairs, internet, garbage, etc. Then we would split utilities, even though there's 3 of them and 1 of me. I don't mind splitting since that would be about what I'm currently paying, I predict. And since I meal prep once a week, I would just get my own groceries and he could get theirs. When I laid everything out, Josh was very unhappy and said that since it's my house, he shouldn't have to pay rent and that we should split groceries. I told him he was welcome to buy his own house and I would move in with him and happily pay rent while renting out my own house. He was mad at me because he said he's not in a position where he can buy a house. We can't come to an agreement, so I suggested he just find another apartment. The owners aren't letting him renew, and we could revisit the topic in a year. He's not happy with that either because rent prices have skyrocketed here, and 2 bedrooms now go for around $1.8 thousand a month, and he thinks he won't be able to find a place he can afford. I'm a bit frustrated because I feel like $700 a month is a really good deal compared to the likely $1,800 he will have to pay. Since we aren't going to get married or anything, I don't understand why he thinks I would be okay with him living for free with his 2 kids. I'm happy to have romance and companionship, but shared assets and finances are not something I want in life. I don't want to support a man. Am I the jerk for expecting my boyfriend to pay rent? Edit. I showed Josh this post and he thinks you are all wrong. So here's some input from him. Leslie makes $120,000 a year and I make $30,000 a year. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, supporting 2 kids with no help from my ex-wife. It's gotten so expensive here that at this rate, I'm not even going to be able to feed my kids soon without going to the food bank. No matter what, they're going to get fed. But it's not fair that she owns a house and can go on vacations or spend $400 a month getting her hair done when I can't even buy my kids name brand cereal. She shouldn't charge me to live with her because she should understand that I want to be able to spend whatever I can giving my kids the childhood that they deserve. Not for me, but for them. Just 2 hours later. Update. Thanks, Reddit. Owe you one, and I'm glad I posted here. After a very loud and angry argument with Josh, I broke up with him. Despite pretty much everyone telling him he was wrong, Josh insisted that I should basically support the 3 of them because it's what would be best for his kids. He doesn't seem to understand that they aren't my kids, and no one is going to want to bankroll the 3 of them, at least no one with a brain. The point is, I'm young, good-looking, I own a house. I can do better than a broke single dad who has no education and a crappy job who thinks it's okay to mooch off me and scream in my face when I tell him no. Hope your next girlfriend is stupid enough to put up with you, Josh. No wonder your ex-wife left you. Am I the jerk for calling my fiance selfish for wanting to announce her pregnancy at her cousin's wedding? My fiance, who's 29, and I, 31 male, just found out that we're pregnant. My fiance mentioned that she wanted to wait to announce it at her cousin's wedding, which will be taking place on Sunday. Her cousin and her husband have been struggling getting pregnant even with IVF. Recently, they got some news that their insurance has stopped funding IVF, so when my fiance brought it up to me, I told her it's not at all a good idea. This just seems so wrong, especially it being at their wedding. I asked if she was going to at least ask her cousin for permission, and she said no, because she wanted it to be a surprise for everyone. I told her it's not the time nor the place for it, and that it would take the spotlight off the couple. In our family, there hasn't been a baby for 3 years, so we'd be the first in that time. Fiance feels that's the perfect time because it's such a joy, and it's not like she can keep it away forever, and their problem shouldn't keep her from telling something so positive. So it's on them if they turn it negative. I told her that's not the point. She knows what they've been through, and she's being selfish if she actually goes through with it. She cried and claimed I wasn't being supportive of her, and I shouldn't be calling my pregnant fiancé selfish. She doesn't want me to come with her to the wedding anymore, feeling as if I would ruin the mood. She hasn't been talking to me either. Edit. So about my fiancé and her cousin's relationship. My fiancé always saw competition in her cousin because her cousin would be better at some things than her. Grades, dancing, cosmetics, etc. Since they were kids, and she hates that. Last year, they had an argument about it because fiancé felt her cousin bragged too much, whereas my fiancé also mentioned there was one thing her cousin wasn't good at, but never said what it was. So in shorter terms, the relationship is in between good and bad, but her cousin wanted to invite her to the wedding. I'm guessing to rekindle that. Update. Sorry for the long wait. I've been going through some things. Me and my fiancé breaking up, work, the passing of my grandfather, etc. So I didn't expect to get a bunch of replies on my post, but a lot of them were helpful. My ex was determined to go to the wedding despite my protests and even planned out how she was going to be refusing alcohol when offered. I did tell my ex's parents about what she was planning on doing. I didn't want to tell the groom or the bride because I wouldn't know how to put it in words that wouldn't make the whole situation less awful. Ex's parents did end up telling the bride's parents, and they told the bride. The bride was so upset that she, unfortunately, called off the wedding. Everyone wanted her to continue it and invite my ex for a couple of plans guests thought of. Example, when my ex announced it, everyone would just stay nonchalant and not give her the excited reaction she was hoping for, and the classic just don't invite her plan. The bride just understandably wanted to be left alone, and she texted my fiance a very long paragraph telling her what a horrible person she was. She just decided not to do the wedding anymore, and her fiance was very heartbroken. But all in all, they were both very grateful to me. My ex instantly knew that I was the cause of all of this, and she was furious with me, even more because I posted about it here, but also said a pretty sick thing about how she still pretty much won anyways. I just decided to break up with her myself after that. Some of her family members are kind of upset with me, as they believed I just caused a bunch of drama. Now I'm currently in the works of talking to an attorney, as my ex told me I will not be seeing the baby after they're born. So, on top of all of the grief, working, breakup, being called a mess starter by some of her family, and still feeling like crap because either way the bride and groom were heartbroken, it's just putting a bunch of anxiety and stress on me. Am I the jerk for giving back everything my family bought for my son? My wife and I welcomed our son into the world early this month. Prior to his birth, we had been given a lot of very nice clothes and toys by my parents for him. My mother-in-law also made some pretty incredible clothes and blankets. My wife, her siblings, and their mom lived in poverty for a large part of her life. Their dad abandoned the family and left my wife's mom with a large pile of debt that weighed on them. So their life wasn't easy. My mother-in-law often made her kids clothes versus buying them because it was cheaper for her to do so. She worked in a store that had a lot of fabrics that they were allowed to take the excess of. She's talented and always put an effort into making sure the clothes looked good enough so that the kids wouldn't be bullied. Those clothes are something my wife treasures. She remembers how much love and effort went into them. She also appreciates that her mom tried to make them work enough to blend in at school, that it saved them years of potential bullying. All these years later, and mother-in-law is still dealing with the debt. She does not have a lot, so she made some amazing clothes and blankets for our son. One of the outfits was even his take-home outfit. But then a couple of days after our son was born, she comes over with a bag of clothes she bought, saying she wanted him to have more. My wife and I were shocked. I could see she was upset and looked almost guilty, so when my wife went to nap, I asked her what was going on. At first, she said nothing and she just wanted her grandson to have more, but then she apologized for embarrassing us. I asked her what she meant. She told me my parents had talked to her after the baby shower and told her that she had left all of the grandparent spoiling to them, that she should understand if we never put our son in any of the clothes because really, they look like the kind of homemade clothes from 70 years ago when people were left with no choice. They accused her of not caring enough. I told her I was so sorry that they had said that. I assured her I had never said anything like that to them, that my parents had no idea what it was like to have nothing and were being judgmental jerks. I even convinced her to take back the clothes she bought and return them to the store. I then gathered up everything my parents gave us and went to their house. My parents didn't even try to deny it when I confronted them. All they did is look down at the effort she put into them. They said we couldn't seriously be okay with those being the only gifts. I said we were, and as far as I was concerned, they were the only truly generous gift he got, and I told them it was their gifts I was embarrassed of. I gave them the stuff back and told them we were no longer accepting their gifts after what they did. They are furious, saying I reacted way too harshly and saying it's a jerk move to return gifts. I'm furious with them too. Am I the jerk? We talk all the time here about what you really have is a spouse problem. This is textbook how to not be a problem spouse. You stood up to your side of the family in defense of your partner and her side of the family. No one had to argue for you to do it, and you didn't angst over how unfair it is to harm your relationship with your parents just because they were jerks. No, you saw the harm done and took accountability for rectifying it and ensuring it won't happen again. Bravo! Congratulations on your bundle of joy, and congratulations to your wife on choosing the right person to spend her life with. Your folks are jerks, but you're not the jerk. Your mother-in-law sounds awesome. I would be so honored to get baby clothes made by a grandparent's own hand. I can't believe she was made to feel badly about such a precious and thoughtful gift. Those are heirlooms. One day you'll be gray and showing off those clothes to your adult kids and sharing stories about what a big-hearted lady your mother-in-law was. How much she loved her kids and grandkids and what a strong person she was. Buy a new one or go home. I used to work at Sonic as a car hop. I usually worked 4 to 5 to close. One day I was cleaning up all the drinks the day shift left around and I found a can of Monster. I grabbed it and walked around and asked everyone who was working. The manager, Robert, like normal, was talking to his girlfriend on the phone. When I asked if it was his, he looked right at me, shook his head, and turned away without saying anything. After I finished asking everybody else, I dumped it out and threw it away. 30 to 45 minutes later, he comes up front and went to throw away his trash and sees it in the trash. He was livid, started screaming, grabbed it out of the trash, and started shoving it in people's face, asking if they threw it away. I told him they didn't. I did. He cornered me against the wall and screamed in my face that I was going to leave and go buy him a new one. 2 things. The monster was probably half full, if that, and I hate being yelled at. And I had asked him if it was his. We got into this huge fight about it, him demanding I replace it, me telling him to buzz off. This went on for 2 hours. It was slow because it was winter, so he sent everybody else home. He was cooking. Finally, he told me I was either going to go buy a new one or I was going to go home. It was 7 at this point. We closed at midnight. I grabbed my stuff and went and clocked out. He said if I didn't go get him a new drink, I was fired. I said okay, see you never. Not even 5 minutes after I left, the general manager, Jeremy, called me asking why I left, so I told him what had happened. He said the other manager can't fire me, as only the GM can, and asked me to go back and finish the shift. I told him that I couldn't do that with Robert yelling in my face like that I'd go back tomorrow. So Robert was done for the rest of the night. Nobody else, not even Jeremy, would come in. He had to cook and run orders for 5 hours by himself. Really upset a lot of customers. And when I went in the next day, he asked why I was back since he fired me, and it was a joy to tell him that he couldn't do that. He held a grudge for 3 whole months. My daughter is demanding that I pay her student loans for her. I'm currently being given the cold shoulder by both my youngest daughter and my wife over this, so I thought I'd get an outside opinion. Both of my 2 daughters graduated from similarly costing universities. I had a school fund set up for both of them, but it didn't cover everything. They both, after graduating, had about $60,000 in student loan debt. They also both were lucky to find jobs in their fields a few months after graduating with similar salaries, about $55,000 a year. However, they took vastly different approaches to their debt. My eldest, for the last 3 years, has lived extremely frugally, and outside of basic needs and bills, all her extra money goes into paying her debt off. My youngest, on the other hand, asked if she could live at home until she gets her loans paid off, but she still only pays the minimum required to send every month and spends the rest of the money on herself. Now the issue started a few days ago. My eldest called me, all excited because her loan debt was down to $500 and she would be able to finally pay it off when she gets her next paycheck. We spoke for a bit more, and after the call ended, I decided to surprise her by sending her $1,000 to pay off the rest of her debt, and so she could finally have some money to do something for herself for once. When I was talking to my wife and youngest daughter over dinner about how impressed I was that she paid it off so fast, my youngest started yelling about how I've never given her money towards her loans. I explained that while I'm not directly paying them, I'm still helping her by letting her live at home rent-free, and she could be closer to paying it off if she spent less on things she doesn't need. After screaming and crying to me a bit more, she stormed off and is staying at her boyfriend's currently. My wife thinks that I should promise to give her some money each month to help her pay off her loan faster so we can keep the peace at home, but I don't think I should reward her for nothing. Not the jerk. Technically, by allowing her to live at home with you this whole time, you've probably paid more towards your youngest loans than your eldest anyway, when you take into account extra groceries, power, and water. You're the jerk. If you have the funds to help your daughter pay off her debt, but you're simply refusing to do it out of selfishness and greed, then you really need to think about what's important to you in life. I will never understand parents who have the money to pay for their kids' college, but simply refuse to do so. This is the kind of stuff that will make them go no contact with you. Yowza! And people wonder why Reddit Boy and I don't have any kids. My sister complains about her life, so I gave her a piece of my mind. To start this off, I'm going to give you some context as to why she did and why I didn't pity her. I, 28 female, have a sister, Caitlin, who is 1 year older than me. Growing up, we were dirt poor. Our family nailed almost every single Southern hillbilly idea on the head. We both did decently, but neither of us had ever considered college. Caitlin graduated high school first and got a full-time job immediately. She began to help with bills, but at some point began thinking about maybe going to school. I was having the same thoughts a year later when I graduated. Well, what we hadn't known was that when our great-grandma passed, she left my dad all that she had, which came up to a sum of a couple $1,000s that they decided to save for us. And because Kate began talking about maybe going to school, Mom began to save her bill money and add it to the sum of the money. Unfortunately, it still wasn't a lot, so our parents sat us down and explained that they had money for only one of us to go to school, and that they would have to think about who to give it to. I was prepared to fight for this chance, because I realized that was my chance to better myself. I was ready to do whatever it took, but I didn't end up needing to because Kate gave up. I guess Caitlin realized she wouldn't be picked because I had better grades and was more well-liked, because Mom told me later that day that she had backed down and said to give it to me. So fast forward, I got my BSN and work as a travel nurse. I do very well for myself and live 2 hours away from my hometown. I went to visit my sister because she's pregnant with my nephew, and I missed her and brought some gifts. We had lunch and we were just chatting about what we were up to when she began to complain and whine that she was tired and asked if I didn't mind if she vented. Before I could answer, she started talking about how she was tired all the time from her shifts at work and then having to come home to her kids and her husband. It sounded a lot like she was regretting her life, and after about 20 minutes, it was starting to get on my nerves. She would not stop or change topic. Finally, I lost it and told her that I wasn't here to listen to her complain and that she really shouldn't complain about the life she chose. I told Caitlin that if she didn't want to have to get married and have a low-paying job, and if she wanted to better herself, she should have fought harder to go to college instead of giving up before she even tried. It ended in her crying, which I felt horrible about, and then she went home without saying anything else. I tried apologizing for how I phrased it, but not for anything I actually said because it was true, but she won't accept it. Our parents have been giving me the cold shoulder, and I feel lost because they won't listen to my side of what I said. Am I the jerk here? Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.